I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Washington football. Woo! Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. The title of tonight's episode is Start Your Engines. And we thought we'd bring in our good friend of the pod, Mr. Anthony Armstrong. But before we get to him, just want to say the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. Anthony, former Redskin wide receiver, the deep threat himself. Thank you so much for blessing us on this Sunday evening, sir. How's your summer going?
Man, the summer is good. Thanks for having me again, guys. I always, make sure I get over here and join y'all, man. I appreciate y'all having me. As always, y'all looking good. Kyle got a little tan rocking over there.
That was borderline Trump orange right now, dude.
Reed got
Yeah. Kyle was like, not 45. You guys aren't taking him down. I'm gonna
Anthony, why didn't you say that about Reed?
Well, I was on my way to Reed. I was just happy.
I thought that was a beer's like tattoo. I didn't know it was your shirt.
I'm happy. Oh, damn. I was happy he had a shirt on this time.
Why are you coming at me so hard right now, guys? What's going on? Anthony, but I want to hear what thing nice you were going to say about me, so proceed.
I was going to say that I'm happy that you had a shirt on. I like your beer's jersey. I had a beer Shinerbach in hand now. So, should be a good episode. Should be a good one.
Sir.
It's going to be a great episode. And we are only days away. Obviously, the rookies reported on July 18th. The veterans report on Wednesday, July 23rd. And so it's an exciting time because everyone's getting their engines started. They're ready to get this thing kicked off. Got a new rookie quarterback, Anthony. But before we get into the actual team and everything like that, because you being a former pro, you worked so hard to get to that point. Are there any training camp memories that you have that you think back to and that you smile about maybe?
Man, I tell you, that's a hell of a question because training camp is just such a weird time because on one breath, like y'all are best friends, you've been battling, grinding, you hang out with each other all day. But also, I need to take your job. You know what I mean? There's only 5 straws and there's 17 of us. So I need to be in that top 5 and 2 are accounted for already. So it's weird. It's a weird feeling. But, man, the one thing I remember that 2010 season is just riding to training camp with Brandon Banks in the truck. And every single day I was playing Rick Ross. I think it was the Port of Miami.
Port of Miami.
Yeah,
hustle hard.
Hustle hard one.
Every day we hustling.
The MC, but the MC Hammer one.
Dude, the MC Hammer killed, bro.
Yeah.
It's like 6 a.m. I'm riding down there over there. What is it? Loudon County Parkway.
Brandon Banks couldn't see over the dashboard.
Yeah, he was good.
He had him in a car seat.
I had him sitting up a little bit higher, so he was secure. But yeah, man, we were roommates in that same training camp, so we were both undrafted. Unlikely. I mean, I thought it was a typo when I saw him at the combine. When he was on the screen, they were like 145. I'm like, somebody messed up the numbers. Ain't no way. I was like, no way. And then that sucker blazed at 40, and then he was out there on the field, and I was like, oh, okay. You legit.
He's shifty. Yeah. It was always so funny watching him because his helmet always looked so big compared to the rest of his body. Yeah. But he was a little lightning rod. I mean,
so many punt returns and kick returns called back.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And you fought your way onto the roster. What is it that what advice would you give undrafted players that are trying to make the roster?
Man, look, Jason Witten said this to me, and this is something I kind of realized myself, is you have to make a play every day. You have to make a play every day. But the thing about when you're undrafted is that y'all understand there's only so many plays that are going to get ran in a practice. Right. And so they're going to get allocated. So if you just take any position group and you just cut it in half, most of them cats at the bottom, they're going to have to run with the threes, or they're going to spend most of their time going scout team for the defense. So you may not even get to run your own offense to try to impress these coaches, right? So if you can make plays against the ones and the twos, then they're gonna start putting a little bit more on your plate, Reed. They start sending you a little bit more. And then now you're in the office with the twos. Like, oh shit, I'm running with the twos today. And then they give you a run and play with the ones, right? So like everybody's waiting for that time where they're like, hey, undrafted rookie, or Kaz Allen, his name comes to mind, guy that needs to really make some splash to get on the roster. You're not gonna go from you just being the third string team receiver to starting with Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota, since he's technically the starter, right? You're not going to just the ones. You're not taking Terry's spot right now. Them first two spots are taken. You just have to make a play, do the right thing, and just stack. Honestly, just like if you're getting pluses on, you don't have to make a catch every time, being in the right assignment, knowing who the hell you're going to, paying attention in meetings. All of that stuff matters because there's a story that they tell with the Cowboys, legendary story about Jimmy Johnson, and he had like a rookie, Troy Aikman. And he said, guys, he said, I'm gonna treat y'all with respect, but I'm not gonna treat you fairly. I can't treat you fairly. So if I have Troy Aikman in this meeting and he falls asleep, I'm gonna wake him up. I'm gonna fine him $3,000, and we're gonna keep it moving. But if you, undrafted player, falls asleep in my meeting, I'm cutting you and I'm sending you home that same day. Right. So you're not treated the same. And don't go in there acting like you got to. Like you have to earn your stripes. Like it's not sexy. It's not
Right.
sexy. You won't even notice it. You're like, well, damn, I'm in the twos. I only get the run plays on the backside, but bust your ass. They want to see you bust your ass across the field. They want to see those things. So that's my tip, is just take every single detail and put it back on tape.
It's kind of crazy. You'd think that in most professions you could probably have a hell of a lawsuit on your hands if they just treated you completely different and fired you for BS like that.
Bro, and literally everything about the professional sports, at least in football, is
Right.
is is like if this were to be in a corporate space, they'd be HR flags. Like, hey, you're overweight, so that's a fine. We're gonna dock your pay $410 because you're 1 pound over. Now you may have a much healthier workforce, sure, but people will be like, "Damn, you're shaming me for my size," and so it comes with the territory. Like even when you get fired, there's like a check, but there's like a page that has like 5 items on there, and they're very broad, and they just check one. All right, your performance wasn't substantial. Like that's as simple as it is, and it don't got to be the real truth. I mean, it's some mess up there, man. It's a mess.
Did Logan Paulson ever do anything weird in camp?
Logan was weird himself. Logan is
Yeah,
man, like okay, like hell, where he's from is like a very they are famous for a very specific industry.
What's
Um,
that?
like his town. I don't know what I ain't gonna even go there, but you can go down the road.
What's his home address? Yeah.
No,
Keep
like
yeah.
whatever town he's from is very famous for like the adult industry movie.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
and
sense.
it's like, wow, really, and just having conversations with him at training camp, like I always chop it up with folks on the sideline, and I was like, this cat here is different. He's wired different, man. Like,
He's like
yeah,
Reed.
Hell
yeah,
yeah. That's why we're best friends. Yeah.
yeah.
Me and Logan are best friends. Yeah.
Hall.
Yeah, so you're speaking about training camp and it's a grind and all the good moments. What's something that you look back on training camp and you're like, man, I do not miss that one bit.
Oh man, what I don't, what a couple of points. So the one point is those first cut days. That very first one, because there's always, there's those some young guys that you've seen work their ass off, and they've done enough, they've done a lot, but it's like just not enough, and they're not enough to supplant somebody that's been there a little bit longer. And you see those guys get cut, and then knowing that for a lot of them, that may be the last time that they ever play football again. They may not ever get another opportunity. Some of them will get picked up elsewhere, and it's kind of fun to follow where people's careers have gone after you kind of drop the leaf and let it float. But those are tough. I hate seeing those cut days because it's like you start seeing faces you've never seen. These like interns from the scouting department, little 22-year-old dudes are like scared as hell because they got to
Yeah.
tap somebody on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, coach wants to talk to you." And it's like,
Even on Hard Knocks, that shit's hard to watch. It's
yeah,
so hard to
man.
watch seeing players get cut.
Yeah, man. Like what gets frustrating as a player is that like we interact with y'all on social media. You know what I mean? And like when you go on there and you like some people just straight up dogging you, and it's like, damn, bro. It's like it's like one you don't understand like the level of like how good you gotta be every single time. Like that's what makes the best the best. You know what I mean? And it's like you when you're in there and you think you love for it, and you're like, man, this is a totally different level of excellence that you got to operate at. That shit hurts. And then when it's your dream and something you've worked for 20 something years, and then it's like it's over,
Yeah.
you know. And you're like, well, they never threw me the ball, and it's like going back to what I said in the beginning. You have to earn the opportunity for them to throw you the rock.
Yeah,
You know what I
I'll never
mean?
I'll never forget Vontae Davis. Granted, he was traded, but R.I.P. Vontae Davis too. But I'll never forget seeing him get called in when the Dolphins traded him, and Joe Philbin told him he's traded, and he's just sitting there like a little kid in trouble or something, and he just goes, I gotta go call my grandma, and they're like, you can go, like we'll give you, and he's like, can I go call my grandma now? And I was just like, damn, man, it's so sad. He didn't want to
Yeah,
go.
Imagine having to
yeah,
leave Miami, dude. That's horrible. I feel
That's
for
what I'm
him,
saying.
man.
Going to
Yeah, you have to go to
Indianapolis
Buffalo.
after that?
Yeah.
Are you
man.
kidding me? Ew.
Man,
Ugh.
it was it's tough, man. 'Cause, I mean, you gotta think they are young, right? You go back and you gotta I tell people I'm like, "Dog, what would you be doing if you were 22 and you had the biggest music artist and the biggest athlete in the
Yeah, hell
world in
yeah.
your cell phone?" Like,
Yeah.
frankly, what were you doing at 22? You
I
know, and people be like, "Hey, hold on, now I can't pull up the evidence of that, right?"
yeah, I was about to say. I would yeah, I understand now why
Statute of
players get in
limitations.
trouble and blow through their money because I would be if I was that age and I got millions, come on, man. You know how
Yeah,
much dumb shit I would have?
yeah.
I can
It's
only imagine. Anthony, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you, but we can keep rolling. We got a lot of fan questions if you want to answer some with us as well, but I got some personal ones I want to ask you.
yeah.
It got reported, I saw that the Mark Ein was interviewed by Kevin Sheehan, and he had a quote in there saying that Dan Quinn was Adam Peters' guy the entire time. So he was a lot like Reed in that breath. Was that surprising at all to you?
Man, I hadn't heard that specific line. Um, and I would say I think I would say I'm surprised, but but it helps me, it makes me feel that much better about the hiring though,
Yeah.
right? It makes me feel that much better that every single thing that he's doing, it has been so well thought out that you can't do nothing but sit back and just let the movie play. It's one of them long ass Harry Potter movies, but it's gonna have a good ending, and you just have to trust that process. And I mean, he said like, yeah, he identified Dan Quinn the whole time. And when you look at how the defense has been built out, whereas there's still some questions in the secondary, right? But other positions, you like, man, they might can do something, right?
And
You
it's
don't necessarily need big names. You need to have good schemes and people to execute it.
Yeah, and I think it's very
What
telling based on where Adam Peters came from, where they had Kyle Shanahan as head coach, right? And the success that they have had, you could say, without winning the Super Bowl, of course. But I think that says a lot, speaking into what Adam Peters kind of sees in his foresight. But my next question for you: they got joint practices coming up in this preseason, two separate ones, going against Miami for the first one. What are the benefits and the drawbacks from joint practices?
Man, I tell you, number one, I hated him. I just hated the fact that I didn't like him. Because number one, and this ended up being part of a negative thing, and you can kind of say where it trains you in this instance, that you've got guys that have been pent up, beating up on each other for 2 weeks. And now you know when you're gonna see this other team, there's gonna be some sort of fight. There's going to be some sort of altercation. There's gonna be some guy who is like third string and he's just a go hard and God bless him, he gives you the best speed, but he's just an unguided missile at some point, and he's going to do something that's going to entice uh some sort of ruckus, right? And to know that that's coming, like you feel like it's happening at some point, and it could happen to you, and you're like, I really don't want to get in the middle of this. I'm just trying to execute my practice so we can get going. That's the downside because matter of fact, go back to Baltimore and Washington.
Yep,
Who got hurt? Right? Mark
Danny
Andrew,
Johnson did, yeah.
Danny Johnson, Mark Andrews out there power slamming all y'all, and now you have people get injured. Now
Forgot
that's a
about that.
downside, right? That's a huge downside. Now the good side is that you get to see new people. You get to try what you've been working on against a different body. You get to go against some different schemes. I think from the coaching side, you get to see how people step up in these different scenarios. Like, are they too big for the moment now that we're going against, an all-pro DB? It's not that same rookie you've been picking on. You know what I mean? You're used to
Right.
picking on St. Juice, right? Now you got to line up against a Marlon Humphrey or a Sauce Gardner since you're talking about the Jets. And now you got to, what I mean? That's different. Who's going to step up there, right? And I think that it's good that you're going to get to see some things that probably prepare you more for the season because you're like, I think they said that the media is not allowed at these practices or something like that. Is that right?
I think so. I think it was for the rookies. I think on Wednesday they are able to show up. I'm not
Oh,
100% sure
okay.
by that. Oh no, you're talking about
Oh,
joint
okay.
practices. My fault.
The joint, yeah, yeah,
I don't think at joint. I don't think they're allowed to be. I don't think
yeah.
so.
Yeah, and I think that there was something was limiting the film, right? And if they gonna keep as much stuff as close to his chest as they can, like it's just gonna work out for their favor. They can be able to test and see how some people can maybe try some things, and they don't have to tell the league that they're trying to do something positionally with somebody. So
Yeah, we talked to
Brandon,
David Harrison last week, and he said that with joint practices it's different than a preseason game because the preseason game is public film. So like
correct.
any NFL team has access to it, but with joint practices they're not able to access that film unless your name is
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk, of
I
course.
was gonna
Sorry,
say
Hall.
that's no match for Brandon Ayuk and his drone. He's gonna say
Man, well, I would say, and respectfully, you can have coaches that will say, "Hey, I'm trying to, I'm trying to work this. Can you give me this certain look?" Right? Hey, I'm looking for, I'm trying to run this against something. I'm trying to try. So you can get some looks back and forth, which helps the coaches kind of, see how what they've been the brainchild may look on paper. So
Right.
I think it's more beneficial schematically. I just don't like them because I'm like, man, it's just now somebody's gonna be wild, somebody's gonna get hurt off some stupid shit, and that's not what I'm trying to deal with.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because I was actually gonna ask about Brandon Ayuk. You brought up Brandon Ayuk. So it's been reported that there was like 5 teams during the draft that were willing to pay Brandon Ayuk whatever contract he was trying to get, and people just connecting the dots saying Commander is one of those teams. And you being a former wide receiver, playing in the NFL, a lot of people out there are saying like, oh, he's in Kyle Shanahan's offense with all these weapons around him, and he's not worth the money, and so on and so forth. What would a guy like? It's probably not going to happen because training camp around the corner, season about to start in a couple months. So the likelihood of the trade happening now is probably 2%. But if they were to make that trade, give him the contract, what would a guy like Brandon Ayuk bring to an offense here in
and,
Washington?
and before you answer that, me and Hall have a lot riding on your response to this because
All
you could
right,
win us a pretty big argument that we had with our entire Discord chat. So go ahead.
all right, okay. I think it's twofold. I really do, and I don't know if this will split the kitty or whatever for y'all, but I think it's twofold. I think number one, it's got to help the development of your quarterback, because that's his best friend, right? Now, does that mean that there's a few more targets his way? That's fine. And I think that Terry McLaurin is probably the best person to have on the other side that may not really be tripping too much, right? Over all these years, you've never heard him get pissed off about lack of
I
targets.
feel like
And he
Terry at
might
this
have,
point is like, I'd rather win than kind of be like, I want to get my stats up and
correct.
show people I'm a top 10 guy. Like, I would just want to win.
For real, I feel like that's how he's always
Yeah.
been, right? And he's been loyal enough to stay here. So I think it could help Jaden Daniels. And you would like to think that that attention could help open other people up. So, I think he brings that. You've seen him hustle on running plays and making spectacular catches down there in San Francisco, and I would like to think that you'd have a creative offensive coaching staff that can put him in position to make those plays and help open up this offense. So he gives you a deep threat in a sense. Maybe not the pure speed guy, but I think he's going to be able to help you develop the quarterback and hopefully bring a few more big plays on the outside.
All right, I like that. I like that. I'm not going to counter argument at Hall or Reed, but I'll let it slide. Last question I
Accept
have
the
for you:
L, Kyle.
one breakout candidate for Washington, not named Jaden Daniels.
Ooh, breakout candidate for Washington. I think I was going on the offensive side. I think a real easy one is Luke McCaffrey. Just as it sits, like before any type of trade, I mean, you gotta say it seems like he's going to be number three, and they're trying to find ways to get him on the field. And he's a guy
White
that,
slot receivers.
hey, Hey, look, but if he can make plays, man, that's even better,
Yeah,
right? Look at Edelman. That's how he
that's what I'm saying. Wes
got
Welker,
dirty,
all those guys.
and
Yeah,
he's got more speed than both of those guys.
and
He's
he's size too. Yeah,
4'4" dude, right?
yeah.
So I mean, there's gonna be all type of trick plays and ways to get him the ball. So I would say he could be a breakout guy. And you said rookie, right?
Doesn't have to be, but yeah.
Okay, all right. Ooh, Brandon Coleman.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
How does a lineman break out? I think that he just will continue to wow people, and week in and week out he's gonna just continue to grow. He's athletic enough, and that one clip where he was kick sliding left and right, like that was a big nimble dude to be able to cover that ground, and that lets me know he should have the ability to kind of hold it down on that left side.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm gonna start calling him Little Flip. It looks just like him.
yeah.
Now let's get into some fan questions before we wrap up here, Anthony. This one is from Tony Franchise on Twitter. We have a solid coaching staff. Who do you think is the steal that we have on the staff? He thinks that it's Anthony Lynn.
Hmm. Hmm. Man, my first thought went to Brian Johnson,
Okay.
the quarterback coach, right? Because
Yep.
he was a head coach candidate, definitely could be the OC for some place. Um, I think he ends up being a steal because you get to keep that young talent in the building. I mean, even if it was just a season, like I think you can learn from that and maybe help even out what Cliff likes to do. Maybe throw some more runs in there. They obviously had success in Philly, so you get a little inside knowledge of what's going on over there. Because this seems like a coaching staff that's not afraid to learn from each other. And so I think Brian Johnson would be a good one.
For me personally, it's Ken Norton. Just given with the weakness at linebacker that we have had, I think. But credit to Tapp. I think Daryl Tapp is one of those guys that it is what you want out of a defensive line coach. Reed.
Yeah, I was gonna go Ken Norton too. Just I mean, former defensive coordinator. He knows Dan Quinn's defense because he came up under Dan Quinn. He was a fantastic linebacker in the NFL. Granted, I mean, he was a Dallas Cowboy at one point, but that's okay. I just think that you look at that and like being able to have a Bobby Wagner who's a coach on the field, being able to have a Frankie Laveau and Jamin Davis who they're planning on being versatile, and then bringing up some of these young guys like Jordan McGee. I think he's just in a perfect position to kind of go out there and get these guys going.
Hall.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony. I say Brian Johnson just because that's the guy that was looked at as a head coach, and so obviously he has some type of coaching chops to be considered as a head coach in the NFL. If you go back to Jalen Hurts' their Super Bowl run year, he was a quarterback coach there, and Jalen Hurts gives him a lot of credit as far as like working with him day to day and developing him, and obviously a lot of Shane Steichen had a lot to do with that, but Brian Johnson definitely a part of that. And if you just go back to last year, he seemed to be the scapegoat in Philly because if you believe Diana Rossini's report where it was all Nick Sirianni's offense and blah, blah, blah. So I think that a guy like that, stealing a coach from your division rival who's obviously a great quarterback teacher, I think is going to benefit Jaden Daniels greatly.
And I do think that Jason.
They got people from all three teams.
Yep.
They got people from all three teams.
Offensive line coach from New York,
yeah.
obviously
DB
Joe
coach.
Witt, Dan Quinn from Dallas, and then obviously Brian Johnson.
Sure.
But I think Jason Simmons is another one that needs to be brought up. What he did with the Raiders defensive back group there was phenomenal, and that's one name that is being
Did it in
slipped through
Green
the
Bay
cracks.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's another one. Fantastic question, Tony. The next question that was submitted, this one was by our guy, Just Your Average Fly Guy, Anthony. Seeing as though training camp is so close so we can taste it, can each of you give us 3 position groups you all are excited to see and name your top 3 sleepers, if you have that many, who will open eyes and make the roster?
Okay. Wow. Top 3 position groups that I'm paying attention to. Obviously the receivers. You want to see how that shakes out, what that usage looks like. Number 2 is the linebackers because I think they're going to be very intricate and integral to what goes on with this defense and just how they move around and correcting defensive linemen. And I expect a lot of slapping and they move your ass over a little bit, like a lot of communication on that defense. And then third of all, it would be the secondary. I'm really excited for Derek Forrest being back. Is he healthy? Is he gonna be ready to go?
Yep.
I think so,
Yeah, it
yeah.
should be. Yeah.
Good, because him and St. Juice had a little thing rocking, a couple years ago, right? So maybe that helps St. Juice, right? They can kind of vibe off each other, right? So Dan Quinn has he's good with safeties. He's had some good safeties in his
Yeah.
day.
Very good safeties. For me personally, Fly Guy, I will say the edge rushers. Obviously, Dorrance Armstrong being there, but I would really like to see how that battle shapes out to see who wins it on the opposite side of Dorrance Armstrong. The other one is tight end. We have plenty of tight ends here. Obviously, young tight ends that untapped potential, and also a rookie being added here to the point where I think Cliff Kingsbury said that Ben Sinnott is going to be the spearhead on the offensive identity for this offense. I'm really excited to see how the tight ends battle it out and how that kind of shapes out, so to speak. And the last one is going to be corner. I think Anthony already highlighted it a little bit because there's not a lot of corners on here, but there's a lot of safeties. And so I really want to see who wins the job at starting corners and how they kind of be able to move around in that process.
Yeah, I think the secondary as a whole, just like the different types of guys that they brought in there, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Also, I don't know if you noticed, the Commanders have been posting, like, the rookies have been like, what was your defining play? They posted one of Mike Sainristil. Mike Sainristil had two. He had one on the offensive side where he was a wide receiver, where he threw a block that helped spring Blake Corum, and then the other one was when he was a defensive back, he made a huge stop early on against Washington. And it's like, that's just the kind of player he is. He's not going out there looking. He's doing the little things, the things that, corners. You think about interceptions, or I had this game-winning pick, I had this pick six. He was talking about this, a big tackle, just a big tackle and throwing a block. And you gotta love that. And then with the St. Juice and Mike Davis and Emmanuel Forbes, and then you get to Jeremy Chin and all these guys. It's very exciting. I'm going to say quarterbacks, obviously. I want to see what the boys got. I want to see what the golden child has. I want to see what Jaden Daniels is out there doing. And offensive line, if Brandon Coleman hits, if we hit on that in the third round with a starting caliber left tackle, that's going to be huge. That's a huge, huge hole that you just filled and that you don't have to worry about.
That's a great one. I did see an article posted in investigating for this episode saying that Jaden Daniels will win the starting job sooner rather than later, and that's what we all honestly expect. Above, no disrespect to Agent Zero. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I'll say the offensive line just because, like you said, the interior you could say is pretty solid, but there's questions on both sides of the tackles, right and left. And like Reed said, if Coleman can step in, and even if it's not week one, if he can step in by, let's say, the middle of the season, the latest, and kind of be that solid left tackle and keep growing and growing, I think that's going to do just numbers and just pay major dividends for the offensive line and then for Jaden Daniels as well. And if you really think about the coaches that we hired, you could say that Bobby Johnson is like the weak link that a lot of people have questions about just because of his history with New York and with the Giants. So, and I'd say probably the DBs just because all the guys you named, and a guy like St. Juice, who is kind of that tall, lanky corner that Joe Witt and Dan Quinn really like to use in their defenses. He's physical. Hopefully they can kind of coach him up, and he's in the right position a lot. Hopefully he can get his ball skills, can be enhanced by Joe Witt or Dan Quinn.
He's learned from Reed.
And I'd say I'll go with the tight end room as well, just because, like you said, we got Zach Ertz, but if you just look at the last couple of years, Ertz has really been kind of more of a locker room culture builder guy.
Yeah.
And I think that if he can give us 10 to 12 games of production, that's going to do wonders for this offense. Good middle of the field target, great red zone target. So I think that can help out with scoring points as well.
My man. Anthony, that'll wrap us up here, brother. I hope you have a great evening. Always appreciate your time being able to come on here and join us, talking to Sweet Feet himself. But before you get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle and your show, brother.
We was on mute there. I apologize. Appreciate having me as always, y'all. Rated Armstrong at Rated Armstrong. Check me out, IG, Twitter, and all that fun stuff. Hosting Believe in Commanders podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. And I'll just throw this out here because I know y'all good for it. I'm getting into the speaking game, right? The more podcasts that I've been doing, I've been like listening and embracing my story, and then I crafted a good keynote. So definitely looking for them type of plugs as well. So
I can see
y'all
you
want
being
me in there.
Are you going to do public speaking?
Yeah, man.
Dude, I could see you being really good at that. You
I
just have that
appreciate
natural
that.
personality that
I
where you're drawn
appreciate
to.
that.
Yeah, not
I
in like a weird way,
appreciate
but
that.
yeah.
Make sure you
No,
slide
no,
a you got to
no.
just slide a joke in there, Anthony, and then you got them all in your grasp,
Hey,
brother.
I am good for a joke. I'm
I
always
know
have
you
a
are.
good joke.
Make sure you ask everybody. Just start going full Andrew Tate on them. Make sure you do that. Make sure you say, "What color is your Lamborghini? What color is your?"
That's not see that I can say that's not my vibe. That's not my vibe.
That's
It
not
ain't,
my
The
it
alpha
vibe.
male community, you sure?
I
Anthony,
don't
have a
have a
good night, brother.
Lamborghini.
Enjoy the family, enjoy the week, and all the updates from training camp, man. I can't thank you enough.
You got it, man. I'll see y'all later on the training
Appreciate you,
See you,
camp.
brother.
man.
Don't worry. I'll be
I
back.
did see it.
My man, yes, you will. All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Anthony Armstrong. Always appreciate Anthony coming on here.
I swear, man. That dude's my favorite guest we get on the show.
I
Man. I'm
know
telling you.
he's the man. He's so tight.
And he always
So
gives us
cool.
lots of
I just
time,
want to
you know, and
follow
that's
him
the one
around
thing
and
about
hang out with him.
Anthony is that
Yeah.
he
Not
just
that
really
bitch ass Logan. Yeah.
No, but it is funny though that he says that Logan's from Vegas, so
Logan's
they just have
weirdo.
really
Look,
weird
he's in
conversations.
California. He's from Los Angeles. He's from California. Trust me. I literally, after he said that, I pulled up the entire Wikipedia page on his town. All that.
Because he did go to
I'm
UCLA,
asking
didn't he?
him everything
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, he's from Northridge. I'm
Okay.
gonna go in a deep dive and be like,
He's
"What do you
never
have to
gonna
say
come
about
on the
this?"
show ever again if Reed hits him up.
Good. He's not coming
Right.
up. I talked to him this weekend, and he said, "Boys, I'll be there soon." I said, "You will be."
Yes, you
Else I'll
will.
choke slam your
And now
ass.
we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Mark Macauley, who helped us do some of the draft episodes leading up. So obviously in the draft process, we like to break down. We do mock drafts and we have fan submissions in. So Mark, I can't thank you enough for joining us again, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, no doubt. Doing well. How you guys doing?
Fan frickin'
Doing
tastic. And
nice.
so to wrap up this episode, Mark, I know you specifically wanted to answer fan questions with us. And so we have a whole lineup of them. I hope you're ready for it because it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into the ones about football and everything, we did have one submitted by the Colonel. And this one is important. His question is, at least 2 of the Burgundy Zone hosts have relocated lately. How has this affected your broadcast, and do you anticipate moving back to twice a week anytime soon? And funny about that, we moved to Delaware not too long ago, about a month and a half ago, and so we had to dial things back a little bit, trying to make sure it worked where all 3 of us were on here. So we moved to 1 day a week. We moved it to Sunday evenings, but starting this week, we're gonna be shifting to 2 episodes a week. And so we'll be looking for episodes on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. We're going to keep that going as long as we can. And if we have to adjust for the season, we will. So thank you for asking that, Colonel. It's a fantastic question. But Mark, this next question from the Colonel is a really good one. And I'll start this with you. In the latest discussion of Rigo's Rag report that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn badly wanted Mike Sainristil, and they would have taken him sooner had defensive lineman Johnny Newton not fallen into their laps. While this is exciting, are we setting a trap for ourselves by having these undersized defensive backs like Emmanuel Forbes and Mike Sainristil?
Man, Hall can tell you this. I'm a huge Michigan fan. I've been doing recruiting for Michigan for a while, just, doing some workups and some interviews with some guys throughout the process, more so in the 2016 to 2020 era, right before COVID, I was doing it. But, man, I'll tell you, with Sanders still, I've never seen a dude more dedicated and like a proven leader than I have
Yep.
in my time watching Michigan football. Like, I mean, yeah, he's undersized, but he's kind of lean to the fact where he's not that bony structure like Forbes is. He's more compact and he can play to his body. So he's not going to, he's not going to look his size when he's playing. Like you can watch, if you watched the Ohio State game last year, when he jumped that route and hit Travion Henderson, who's not a small dude,
Yeah.
he knocked him on his butt. Like you could see how much power he had within him. So to kind of make some comparisons, I mean, when I think about his game, I see kind of like a hybrid in a way where he can play that safety if he wants to, but he's a good nickelback. And I see what's the guy's name from the Steelers a few years back that played that nickel really well.
What's his name? He was like the best nickelback in the league.
Yeah,
Shit. Why can't I remember his name?
is it Hilton?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, Mike Hilton.
Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Mike Hilton.
Hell yeah.
But just the leadership too, because I feel like that's something we've lacked for some time yet. Like, they bring people in and they'll be like, oh, they were leaders, they were captains on their team. But, this guy is a proven leader. If you just watch some of the background scenes of him hyping the guys up and,
Yep.
really showing that inspiration. I know, Mike, you're a Michigan fan as well. If you watched that Illinois game when Blake Corum went out with his injury, he stood up on
Yeah.
the bench and talked to all the
Got the entire roster that was on the sidelines around him, hyped him up,
Yeah.
came out and whooped ass after that.
Yeah, he's a ball hawk too, but he's not like Forbes where he's going to, if he jumps a route, he times it well. He's not gonna take it too often. He knows when he can do it and when he can't. So, I mean, yeah, sometimes he might get a little beat, but he can he can catch that up in the end because he's really quick. He's deceptively quick.
Yeah, and there's a reason why Adam Peters and company really like this kid. And one of the things that stood out to me in the pre-draft eval of Mike Samerstill was that he played wide receiver his first 3 years and then plays DB his senior year. And at DB in his senior year, you have to imagine college football is completely different than high school, right? But at Michigan, at this they're competing against the best teams. He's the one calling out communications pre-snap. He's telling guys where to go, which going to show about the mental game of it all. And Mike Samerstill not being behind, but being in front of his teammates there and being the leader on that side. So I would say it's kind of different in that aspect because you're not only getting somebody who is a ball hawk, like Mark expertly said, but also you're getting somebody who's coming in with the mindset of having to learn on the fly, mastering it on the fly, and having that grasp and being that leadership of people who've already been there, but respect this guy's words so much that they are listening to him on the field. So I think that goes a heck of a long way, especially in the pros. We know this from somebody like Terry McLaurin, and I think that Mike Samerstill is equatable to Terry McLaurin in how he plays football. This is my personal opinion. What about you, Reed?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, like if you see somebody there that you like it makes sense that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn were so like when you watch the pre-drafts or the behind the scenes stuff, like Dan Quinn was so pumped, like they loved him. Like he was like when I left Michigan after that pro day, I was like I want to coach this kid, like I want to coach this kid so bad, and it makes he's a dog like that. Like I talked about the Instagram post from the Commanders earlier, where his two defining plays that he said was a block on a run and a big tackle on when he was on defense, like. It's the kind of guy he is. And are they digging themselves into a corner or like a hole? Not really, because then you look at somebody like Benjamin St. Juste, who's 6'3". Then you look at Mike Davis, who they brought in here, who's 6'3", 6'4". Like they still have the size. It's just if you see somebody that you know can play football and plays a very niche position like nickelback and can be successful in it, that's who you take.
And to your point there, also, we probably have the best coaching staff in the defense to be able to help those corners. So, like, we've seen what they can do with the secondaries with what they have, even having some devastating injuries to their top guys. The turnovers just continue to keep flowing. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, Mike Hilton's definitely a good comparison. I was kind of not like size and kind of body wise, but just game and kind of how he plays the game wise. I would say he reminds me of kind of Bradley Roby from the Broncos back a couple years ago.
I think I saw that before.
He's another one who's
he had a really good stretch of a couple of years where he was like the best slot corner in the league. Yeah. And I think that those same kind of traits are in Samerstill, where, like Mark said, he's a guy that he's not going to take every opportunity to jump a ball, but when he does, it's like he knows he's going to 9 times out of 10 probably get that, at least knock it down, if not pick it. And he's a guy that gets physical in the run game. He's a guy that can get on the line of scrimmage and jam you up, play physical at the line. And I kind of compare him to, like, I think he's going to be our defensive version of, like, Terry McLaurin, where, like, he's not only, like, a leader, like, on the field, but, like, off the field as well. Going to, like, get guys hyped up. And I think that, he's going to be a great pick for us. And with Joe Witt, Dan Quinn coaching up DBs and the defensive secondary, I think he'll be a great addition.
Absolutely great one. Now this submitted by Jubs, James Jubain on Twitter. Thank you, Jay. His question, Mark, now that Biden has dropped out, who is one late round pick, 5th or later, you hope succeeds?
5th or later.
I don't know why.
Is that really what the question says? That's so funny.
Yeah, that kind of threw me off because I was thinking of something else, and then it came to that. 5th or later, I'm trying to think of, because we were such a front heavy draft that it, like, the late guys kind of.
There's only 3.
Yeah, we have McGee, we have the guy from Notre Dame.
Javonte Jean-Baptiste.
Yeah, I know Baptiste. He started at Ohio State, then he transferred to Notre Dame. But I would say McGee. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
know him when we drafted him. I knew there was a couple other guys on the board that I knew, and I was like pounding the table for. And when McGee got picked, I was kind of like, all right, well, I don't know much about him, so I did some research. But everything I saw, he looks really good. Um, he's kind of like a pounder. I mean, it might their games might not be completely similar, but I kind of got the reaction and the thought when he got picked to a guy like a couple years back we drafted a late round linebacker named Spates. Do you remember
Yeah,
him?
Martrell
Maurice
Spates,
Spates. Yeah,
Arkansas.
Markel Spates.
Arkansas
Arkansas.
boy,
Yeah.
dude. He
Mhm.
was they called him
Very
a headhunter or something
Yeah,
at Arkansas.
yeah.
The Hammer. I think
The
it was the
hammer, yeah,
Hammer.
that's what it was.
Kind
That
of
was my guy.
reminded me of that based on what I was hearing. I mean, but based on his qualities and the play that he did show on tape, and it seems like he's an all-around player. He can contribute to special teams, which is what we're going to need right away, and then he can just learn under the tutelage of the linebackers that we brought in and have already. So, I think it's a good pickup, and I would go with him as the guy that would make the most noise the first couple of years.
Yeah, I would say like with getting Temple film for me, because I had to do it the public way. I couldn't get any Temple film, so it was hard to be able to see anything on Jordan McGee for me. But I will go with Javante Jean-Baptiste just because of we have question marks at edge rusher, and I think that our secondary can really benefit from having constant and consistent pressure. And so I'll say Javante Jean-Baptiste. He's not a quality like finesse rusher where he's got a fantastic bend, he's got the speed to come off the edge. He's much more so of the Ryan Kerrigan-esque working hard, collapsing the pocket, forcing the quarterback out, and then getting the cleanup stuff. And so I think that that's somebody who really can be productive for you, really benefits everybody else. So I'll say Javante. Anybody else, Hall of Reed?
Yeah, Dominic Hampton. He always seems to be the
Yep.
forgotten guy in this draft class, and it
Yep.
makes sense. But like, you listen to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn talk about this guy, like before they
Van
drafted him, they were
Wilder.
excited to pick him. Dude, yeah, but I mean, but he's got like perfect size. He's athletic as hell. He was kind of overshadowed a little bit in that Washington secondary, but he's still. I mean, the dude's got all the tools. Adam Peters, when he was talking to him after he drafted him, he was like, as soon as you walk by me out of the tunnel, I was like, who the hell is that guy? I want to draft that guy because like he's such a freak, like just with the DBs walking out there. So I think you can find if you can get him to harness that, you can get that guy into a very niche role. You can find something for him. Kind of like I mean, he's not as athletic or the same player, but they're going to do that with Jeremy Chin. They're going to be
Yeah.
moving him around all over the place, and I think you can maybe develop Hampton into possibly being a good contributor doing that.
Yeah, no, dude, watching his film against Michigan, dude, Michigan ran all over that Washington defense, dude. It was disgusting watching that, but I know that won't be a consistent theme moving forward, and it wasn't because of Hampton either. But now, Hall, I want to
That's what
start
I'm
this
saying, 'cause
question
he's the
with
only guy who
you,
plays
sir.
defense, so it's
I
tough.
want to start this question with you in particular, Hall. This one from Michael B, MT Bags _77 on Twitter. Thank you, Michael. His question is, Hall, what kind of year would Jahan Dotson have to stop talking about the bust status?
I'm a big Dotson guy. That's my guy. So if you look at his past 2 years, and obviously the injury his rookie year kind of hampered what he was going to continue to do his rookie year, but he's been a 50 catch guy, 500 yards guy. The only difference was his first year he had 7 touchdowns. Last year, obviously he had the couple drops here and there in big spots, and he didn't have as many touchdowns, obviously. And I think if you go back and look at like his game stats for the last 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it might have been, he was literally like 2-3 targets, 1 catch for like 25 yards. So I think he has to not only get back to what he was doing his rookie year as far as like yards after the catch, getting busy in open space. I'm not gonna say score like as many touchdowns because like it's hard as hell to score touchdowns in the NFL, but score a couple touchdowns in big spots. And I think that he's gonna have to show that he can be more than a 50 catch, 500-yard guy. Which, as a number 2, it's kind of like you need a little bit more for your number 2 receiver. So I would just say that get back to your rookie year production as far as like just
Touchdown
having
total.
that confidence. Having the confidence out there, not really dropping any balls, not really getting inside your head. And I would say yards after the catch, getting busy in open space because I think he's going to get used in the screen game a lot and the quick game a lot. And just show that you can be more than a 50 catch, 500-yard guy. I think if he does that, they'll pick up his 5th-year option, and we'll see where it goes from there.
And his touchdown total is right up there with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, who are also drafting him. And a lot of the fan base loves to anoint those guys as difference makers and upcoming stars, but somehow that gets pushed by and not seen with Jahan Dotson, which is amazing. Mark, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just feed off of what Hall said. I think, getting back to that first year production, and I mean, the biggest thing when he was coming out of the draft and just seeing him a lot in the Big Ten, um, is that everyone said he had great hands. And I think last year he kind of took a dip where he missed some of the catches that he should have caught. And, that production, I think it got to his head a little bit. So I just think that if he can get back to year one and, put up anywhere between, 6 to 10 touchdowns and between, anywhere over like 700 yards, I would say would be on par for what I'm looking for from him.
My man. For me, it's going to be hard for me, Michael, just because, I don't think that he's a bust by any stretch, but it is amazing that we were throwing basically 50, 60 times a game, but we struggled to get Terry over 1,000 yards. We couldn't get Jahan Dotson to be productive. Where the hell did they all go? Meaning all the throws and passes, right? It just goes to show you about that
Logan
offense.
Thomas. He was the second leading receiver.
I know. I'm just saying it's kind of amazing just to see that kind of output and nothing being made of it, right? And I do expect that to be different this year, where it's much more so running based and having productive passes go your way. Because I've been on record in saying for a rookie quarterback, the best thing you could do is have a consistent and constant running game with a good defense that can get off the field, giving your quarterback multiple chances to extend the game, get downfield and score points, and running game really goes a long way with that. So with Jahan, it's just when you do get the ball thrown to you, make something happen. Be an Anthony Armstrong, make those big, tough catches, and make important catches that help this football team. Reed, do you have anything to add? Or you want me to start you with the next one?
Nothing of substance. Nothing of substance.
I got you.
Nothing of substance, Kyle.
Reed, this question from 12th Man. I'm okay with the silence around the rookies' first 4 days at training camp, but why do you think the team has not chosen to post about it?
Don't want
I'm right there with you.
Didn't want to.
I'm not sure
Maybe
how much.
somebody's a no do-gooder and they're gonna get fired. I'll tell you that much.
I was at the park on Friday, obviously doing construction work. I've got to be able to see the setup for training camp, all the tents and everything. Everything looks amazing, guys. Obviously, we were only in one portion, and they haven't even put up drywall yet on some of the ceilings, so it's not like it's 100% ready to go. That construction's still going to be there. But I was able to peek through the paper and everything and see in there in the schedule. It didn't seem very active. And so I think it's much more so of getting guys up to speed, much more meetings based in that sense. So I don't think it's not something that they were going to be posting about because I don't think that much active stuff is going down. Now that could be me ignorantly saying that, not reading everything on the schedule that was on the board there. But I just think maybe it's
took a picture of it and posted it online.
No, Doug Williams was there. I saw Adam Peters walk in. I did not beat on the glass. I did see Jaden Daniels walk in. Very nice car. I'm not going to say what it was. That guy should enjoy his privacy. But I will say that I don't think it was something that they probably are going to post about.
BTMZ. We need all the news.
What was the first? I bet I know what the first thought.
You didn't take a picture of his license plate? Come on, man.
Yeah.
What
we know. We know what you were thinking. I can't say it on air, Kyle. Those are your personal thoughts. It was disgusting, though. I'm sure.
Okay.
You saw Jaden Daniels. You said, "Good God, by God, look at that boy." I would like to. And I said, come on, Kyle, what the hell?
Now, Mark, this next question was submitted by Tim Towner in the Discord. He said, I think regardless of whether we are in a 3-4 or 4-3 defensive lineup, we should keep 10 defensive linemen on the 53. If you agree, name those 10. You don't have to name all 10, but.
Man. I mean, I think, the more you have, the merrier, but I don't know. I mean, I think we have strong defensive linemen. And if we can provide a good rotation, I think, spending that extra spot on the back end would be, the best just because of how thin I feel like we are in the cornerback department. But I think it's hard to know until everything shapes out and, also with special teams to see, who's a good contributor, especially with the new roles. So I don't know how all that works because now they're talking about running backs taking the kickoff back and all these different positions. So I don't know if that means, okay, we're going to have more beefier guys like the D line, O line, kind of, guys playing on that more often. But I mean, I would side with having more secondary than D line, just because of that fact.
Yeah, and I do think that Johnny Newton is somebody who could honestly play outside if need be with edge rusher and things like that. So it's not out of the craziness to think because, you have Ridgeway, you got Mathis there, Jonathan Allen, and obviously Deron Payne already. And that's 4, not including Newton, who's 5, right? I know that there was a lot of talent there on the defensive line, but keeping 10 is kind of an insane number to think for the defensive line. So those guys, if they are going to keep 10, they better be able to play on the outside. But I think we're going to stick with the 4-3. Dallas, I don't think had done anything with the 3-4, and obviously it's all based on what personnel you have. But I wouldn't expect that kind of drastic change to happen in an offseason like this where they brought in so many different other pieces. Now the next question from Big Tony Shivers. Hall, who do you think would be a good for punt return and kickoff returns?
I just said on Twitter the other day, I think Mikey Sammer still would be a good guy to put back there. Obviously, I know they got guys like Kaz Allen and guys that are actually like kick returners, but a guy like Mikey Sammer still where he's already going to make the roster regardless. So like that's another spot for someone else to kind of make the team right then and there if you put him at kick returner. He's a guy that played offense like we talked about at Michigan. He played receiver, so he knows what to do with the ball in open space. He knows how to set up his blocks and kind of run off his blocks and whatnot. And I think that he has speed, obviously. So I think Mike Sammer still would be a good guy to put back there. He has hands. He played receiver. So
another one I heard is Luke McCaffrey at kickoff return. I think that would be another good decision there, or punt return, whatever you decide. He does shown that he can do things with the ball in his hands, being a third-round pick, and they've invested into. But obviously, we can't forget about Jamison Crowder himself, who's done a great job. And I've been on the fence of saying Brian Robinson at kickoff return would be phenomenal. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those are really good options. I know Mikey did it sometimes back when he was maybe a sophomore, junior. He did a couple of the punt returns. I think he'd be a good option for that. I think McCaffrey as well would be good. I don't know much about Jahan. I mean, if he's maybe not getting as much workload in the passing game, maybe we can utilize him doing one or the other. But I would also kind of look at maybe Chris Rodriguez. I don't know if he'd be a good guy for the kick return because I think with the new rules, having someone more, a bigger guy that can kind of, at least get us some good yardage. I remember, what was it, back in the early 2000s? Didn't we have like Sellers getting kick returns?
So, I think Darrell Young did something like that too. I know Sellers was always.
So that was back when they had the setup where it'd be like the 2 deep guys and then a line in front of them, and then so like they do like a squib kick or a short kick, and Sellers would pick it up or Young would pick it up. But they kind of switched that up, the whole wedge thing.
Darrell Young, a former guest of this show, I love that guy.
Yeah, that dude used to get in it.
I think any of them would be a good option.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, I mean, I like Jameson Crowder back there. That's not going to excite a lot of people with the new rules. I think he could fit in there well. Another person that I thought about and it just crossed my mind, but I don't want the guy getting killed, would be Emmanuel Forbes, depending on what he's doing. But I mean, he's been electric with the ball in his hand in the past, at least in college. But I mean, I think that if he got hit, he might explode. So I don't know if that's good. Yeah.
He's no Michael Reed with the ball in his hands. Isn't that right, Mark? Now, this next question from
Kyle,
the Discord. Mark, who can you – this from Yam Sensei. Who can you see just squeaking by to make the active roster that perhaps no one else is talking about?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say Sam Hartman.
Yeah.
I watched some of him in college. I mean, he doesn't have the best arm, but
he looks so good.
He is very accurate, and I think if they keep 3 quarterbacks, I think that he could be that guy to fit in. But a lot of people are thinking he's just a camp body, and I think I don't know how these new rules work, but I saw he got drafted to the UFL. Is it the UFL?
Yeah.
He was I don't know if he doesn't make it, if he automatically goes there, so it might kind of push them to be like, all right, let's put him on the active roster, see what he can do, and then if it doesn't work out, then we'll release him.
Shit, man, you got to think even make it playing for being on the practice squad, he probably make more money than he would in the NFL. And the UFL, fucking yeah. I'm gonna go somebody who I mentioned earlier, and I don't think he would get cut, but sometimes these late round picks don't make it, and just with the numbers game, how many guys that they have at safety, Dominic Hampton, I really think that they can find a good role for him. So I'm going to take the easy way out, Kyle.
My man, I like it. For me personally, I'll probably say Cole Turner. I know everyone is kind of poo-pooing on my boy, but he's worked hard this offseason, and that's somebody I think that with the upside of what he has in the passing ability, if you are going to keep John Bates as that blocking tight end, it would be very good to have Cole Turner as a receiving tight end who has bulked up, working on the blocking, and could come in and make some big-time catches for you and move the chains Logan Paulson style. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the tight ends. I was going to say Amani Rogers just because obviously he showed a little bit of flashes here and there before the injury.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new coaching staff, whole new regime, front office, blah, blah, blah. They have no ties to him. But if he can show that he's at least 80% plus healthy from the injury and he goes out there and shows up flashes again in camp and he has the size and the athleticism to kind of play that kind of flexed out, I guess they call it the Y tight end. I think that a guy like Armani Rogers could possibly slip in as like maybe the 52nd, 53rd guy.
My man, last two questions that we have. Mark, this one is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! In the 1 Point Safety Show. Thank you, Scott. He asks, do you have any contenders in mind for new team president? And how will Jason's time in D.C. be looked at in 5 years?
Man, it's a hard one. I was trying to think of guys that might have ran through with, our existing staff to see who might fill in. I'm not positive as to who might step in, but I mean, with Jason, I think, he did some good and bad, and I think he was blamed for a lot more than people really, get on him about. But yeah, I mean, anytime that he's kind of, bulged in with Snyder and that situation with Bruce Allen, things like that, I think it's hard to kind of look and be like, yeah, he was a successful president. But I think he did what he could, and I had this conversation with my friend the other day with Ron Rivera and them talking about how poor he did. But then I look back and I'm like, with all the adversity he had to go through, and not only with the cancer but also COVID coming in his first year, and just being under Snyder and trying to fix all that mess, it's hard to really turn the team around too and put your full focus on that. But in terms of upcoming president, I'm not sure who could take that role, but I'm guessing it will be someone that is close knit to Peters.
Yep. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And obviously, the team president is going to be much more based on the business side, Scott. So it's hard to be able to say because you can really go out of the sphere of the NFL if you truly wanted to, and just being able to run the organization from a financial standpoint. So it would be hard to pinpoint anybody who can come in here and do what the team president is requested. But Jason Wright's time here, the Colonel said something to me a while back, based on conversations because I always ask him questions based on his job and what he did. And one thing that he learned when he was a young man is you leave things better off than when you found it. And there's no question about it that when you look at Jason's time here, that the team is better off now than it was when he found it. It was in complete and utter disarray, chaos, and that's not the situation that it is here today. He did what he had to do. He came to a very violent and chaotic situation, and he was able to stable things out. One of the reasons he was brought in is because Ron Rivera couldn't handle all the questions about everything going on off the field. They needed another figurehead in here, and that's what Jason was brought in for. A lot has been put onto Jason's lap that he's not at fault for. I respect the hell out of the guy. He proved to me personally that he was a man of his word, and he deserves a lot of respect. And I'll always respect somebody who takes the challenge. And nobody wanted to come here during that time, and he did. And so I have all the respect in the world for Jason. I'm not going to blame him for anything that he's not responsible for. But there is no question that the team is better off now than when before they hired him. Now, the next question, the last question we have.
I got one. Come January, there's going to be a former president that is out of a job. So who better than for the new team president role than Joe Biden? Come on. The United States of America, we can do whatever we want. He can be the president.
He won't have to move either.
He won't have to move. He won't have to do anything.
But what if
Honestly.
he starts whispering again when he's talking to somebody? It's the weirdest thing in the world.
It's gotta be the greatest thing of all time.
So now the last question we have,
selling the poppy fields in Afghanistan.
Mark. This last question from Deluxe: who is an unsung hero of the offseason? Someone who has had an impact but also isn't being talked about.
Are we talking about players, staff,
Doesn't matter. Either or.
unsung hero? It's a hard one. Because it leaves it up to so much. I think if I had to group it up, I think I would say some of the alumni. I think, with Harris and Quinn coming in, I feel like everyone's kind of bought back in, with Daryl Green and some of the older vets. They're kind of like, okay, we're back. Like, and I feel like they're doing a lot more, not only for the community, but for the players, now. And I think you need that in a team. You need those former players to really buy in and, really, help with that progression with the franchise.
I'm within. That's something that also Jason Wright obviously hired Tim Hightower, former Redskin himself, running back here, who was the lead of the alumni, getting that group together because it was really hard to be able to do that and trying to mend a relationship with the fan base. But for me personally, the unsung hero, I would say Eugene Shen. He came in last season and he made some difficult choices, letting go of Chase Young, obviously trading him away, but also Montez Sweat, which both of them I agreed with. I was with Awad on the radio at one point saying that's if you're going to get rid of one, you get rid of both. And obviously those draft picks pay to be pivotal, especially in this draft. Because one of the reasons why Adam Peters was attracted here was because of the cap space, was because of the capital in the draft picks. And you wouldn't have had that if you had paid Montez Sweat. You wouldn't have had that draft capital going to get him from the Bears. But you also would have had that money deducted from the salary cap situation altogether, which is one of the reasons why Adam Peters was cool with coming here. He had a lot at his disposal when he chose the job. So for me, I'll say Eugene Shen. I also think he was probably crucial in the picking of the quarterback. I think his time of leaving is very indicative of what he was brought here to do. And that was get the foundation, get the organization set up for success long term by making sure the draft capital was in place, the cap space was in place, and getting the best quarterback here possible. Reed?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Kyle. You know, like when you're a kid and like you're in school and you're like a month away from some break and you just kind of check out. That's kind of how I've been for the last 10 minutes, Kyle. I've been like, yes, 10 more, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. Because then I say, I don't have to listen to Kyle talk for another week. Jesus. No,
well,
I don't.
A couple
I don't
days.
know.
We're going
know.
on Wednesday if you can make it.
Come on, man. We're gonna do whatever we want. We're gonna go back to Afghanistan. Come on.
Oh.
I will say unsung hero.
Yeah, I was like talking for 5 minutes.
I'll say I don't know. I'll just say Lance Newmark. I just feel like he's a guy that came from Detroit. He's been there for so many years. They brought him away from Detroit. Adam Peters, right-hand guy, second in command. And I just feel like he's helped out AP a lot with his experience being in Detroit for so many years. And he's been crucial behind Detroit kind of getting them restarted, rebuilt back up. And I feel like he's kind of behind the scenes kind of helping AP really put together this roster for a rejuvenation and a long-term success. So I'll say Lance Newmark.
All right, that's a really good one. All right, boys, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. If you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. Thank you, Mark, for reaching out and wanting to come on here and answer fan questions with us, sir. You did a great job. But before we get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, sir, and would like to.
Yeah, no doubt. You can find me at Go Blue Insider.
My man.
Hell yeah.
Short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah. I want to get all your opinion on all these Michigan guys.
Nice and easy, yeah. And by the way, Reed, I love that the basketball jersey.
Yeah, there you go. Hell yeah, thank you. This is a Cooper jersey.
Yeah.
The coolest guy on the team. Number 44. Kyle wouldn't know nothing about that. Kyle's
Definitely would not.
Kyle's Squeak. If this was baseball, Kyle would be Squeak. For sure.
Definitely, I'd be Squeak.
Squeak.
No, I'd
Scolari.
be his alter ego, the superhero.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Sleep
basketball?
in a drawer. Yeah. You'd say, he'd be like, "Oh, this is." Kyle came in once. He was like, "Oh, this is a cool bed. Does that Kyle pull onto a bed?" And I said, "Yeah, totally sweet bed. But that's Jenkins' bed. This is your bed." And pointing to the dog bed, and he goes, "Dude, that's so weak." And I said, he goes, "How am I supposed to get a girl in that?" I said, "Don't worry, Kyle. You could get a girl if you had $100 bill hanging out of your zipper." We just kept making fun with him.
You remember lines from it. All right, everybody. That's
I
good.
had a lot of time to myself.
I know
for
you
like
do,
10
and it's
years.
evident. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up this episode. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys again on Wednesday. And remember, we are starting up 2 episodes starting next week. Read and print that in your mind. We'll see you guys on Wednesday and then Sunday, of course, of next week. Enjoy training camp and the build-up for it. Start your engines, baby. The race is about to start. All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.